Hey guys, welcome back to Creatures, Caverns, and Crafting. Today we're going to look at the Mutant Crawl Classic book and get some inspiration for our next project. We already created a mutant in our last episode, so let's take a look at Chapter 6 on Artificial Intelligence. I just want to note that this book is full of lots of artwork, really cool creative ideas for things that you can make. So here we are on Chapter 6, and this guy right here just stands out to me. So let's see what we can make on the table. We're going to start with this military playset that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Let's open the package up and see what we get. First off, we have what looks like to be a gas container of some sort. I think that's going to look really neat for some of our other projects, but I was mainly focusing in on this tank. Looks like it's some sort of anti-aircraft vehicle of some sort. Probably going to get rid of the wheels. Let's see if we take the top off, like so. And we may keep the turret for another project. I do like the way that the guns move up and down. So let's see what we can do from here. I'm going to use a muscle figure like I did in one of my earlier projects. And I'm going to go ahead and cut him in half using my utility knife. The plastic is soft, but still be careful when doing this. And then I'm going to remove the wheels of the tank. This is going to give it more of a stable base. And it's also going to look more level. Now I'm going to take a galaxy creature. I really like the look of this arm. It looks mechanical. And I'm just going to cut that off and cut the muscle figure's arm off and just switch them out using some E6000. Here's our model with the new arm. The E6000 has given a good strong bond to it. Now I'm going to use this 28mm base as a transition piece between the tank and the figure. The one thing we notice about the base is it's very smooth. So to break up that, I'm going to use a bag of rhinestones. And whenever I apply this, this is going to look like rivets or bolts. To apply the rhinestones to the base, I'm simply using some super glue, like so. And just to make your job just a bit easier, you might want to use like some pliers or some tweezers. We'll just simply pick them up, put them in place on the base, and I'm just tapping to give a little compression. Now you can evenly space these out all along the base to give it kind of a uniform look. Explore and just try something new. Very quickly, and I should say optionally, I'm going to use some granny grading on the back of the tank. This is just to provide some extra character. Here's our model once the rhinestones have dried. Now, one of the most challenging aspects of this build was going to be the buzzsaw arm. And I had some beads that I picked up from Michael's. One of the reasons why I used these beads was because they had a large hole on one end and a small hole on the other. This was going to be perfect if I could trim down a piece of sprue and fit into that small side. And just to trim down the sprue, I'm just using a utility knife. And then what I would do is just take the sprue and just jam it into the bead. Now, the bigger hole is going to go over our arm, and we're going to do the same thing there. Just like so. Now we're already holding together and we haven't even applied any glue. And without fastening anything else together, I'm just going to take this saw blade. I'm just going to try to fit it on there. Just get the best positioning. Once I have my positioning right, I'm going to trim down the sprue just a little bit for sizing. Then I'm going to take some hot glue, fasten that buzzsaw to the sprue, and I'm going to tie it all together, the bead, the minifig, with V6000. Just for some base alternatives, I've got a standard large base here for miniatures. We just put the miniature on there. But let's say you don't have that. You can always use the lid from a Pringles can, like so. And that'll give you like a larger area to work with. Maybe you want to put some more detail to the base. Maybe you want a larger monster. And if you don't like that plastic, you can also use the metal bottom portion of the Pringle can too. This is just a great alternative. I wanted this tank to be emerging from some rocks, so I'm going to use some corkboard applied to the base to get that effect. And because this is such a weird angle, I didn't trust applying glue or any other adhesive. So I'm just going to use a screw and just screw the base and the model together. Take your time when doing this, just be safe. As with some of my previous projects, I'm going to use this Vallejo Earth Texture Paint. I really like using this stuff, but if you don't have it, you can use craft sand or gravel. I'm just going to start applying this to the base. And one of the other reasons why I like using this is I'm actually going to use it to weather the tank. I'll put some of it on the treads here in a second. Now, one thing to note when we're applying this, we're going to keep it off the side of the base. And of course, once we get it everywhere we want, we're going to allow a lot of time for this to dry. I'd probably walk away, go have a snack or something, come back in like maybe 30 minutes to an hour. I applied a Army Painter Army Green as a primer. If you don't have access to that color, you can also use a Rust-Oleum Camouflage Green. I'm going to use an Agres Earthshade. That's a brown wash over this. I'll be taking a flat tip brush. It's kind of soft. And the way I'm going to do this wash is going to be a little bit different than you would normally do a wash on a miniature. In this case, I'm going to load up the tip of the brush, and I'm going to press down and pull back. Try to keep this going in one direction. This is going to be a little bit different. If you've done other models before, you may be accustomed just kind of brushing it all over and just letting the wash go where it needs to go. In this case, we're going to kind of direct it to the back of the model. When you're doing this, if you do get pulling, you can just take your brush, dab that, put it on a napkin. We're also going to cover this over with another shade of green, so don't get too caught up with it. And just go all over the model like this. Take your time. You should have a pretty good result after it's dried. I coated the texture with a burnt umber. I also used a dark gray on the arm and the corkboard. And the next step we'll do is a dry brush over the model itself. For that, I'm using a brown violet. What we're going to do is just wipe off all the excess paint onto a napkin and just start going over the model like so. This should be a gradual build. You may not even see the paint at first, but as you go over it, you'll see it start to come onto the model. To give a little bit extra character to the model, I'm going to use a lighter green, and I'm just going to do this as a highlight. Again, we're dry brushing. We're going to get as much of the paint off the brush as possible. And when I do this, I'm just applying it to the edge of the model, like so. And we're going to get all over the model. Anywhere that you see an edge, we'll do this. I'll be going over both the arms of the model with the black. Then I'm going to add some white stripes to the buzzsaw arm. What I'm going for here is like a construction safety look. Then I'm going to go over the white stripes with the yellow. And again, we can apply several coats here if it's not bright at the first time, and we'll just build and get a good look on it. Next, I'll be taking gold and going over the faces. Keep in mind, these faces are very small, and I didn't want to go over and start painting a lot of detail, but we can go over and just do a simple dry brush of gold and maybe even add a little bit of black wash to it, and it'll look really great. I'll be applying a quick dry brush of golden brown to the base. This is just to pick out the details of texture. I'm going to move on to a Vallejo environment paint. This is mud and grass. Before we begin, I want to point out this step is completely optional. With the dry brushing we did earlier, we could really just go on a table as is. But if we want to do this, I'm just going to take a brush and just start applying this very gradual into the tracks. When you open it, you'll see flocking with the paint mixed in. A little goes a long ways with this. Just to add an extra level of weathering, I'm going to use this Splash Mud by Vallejo. And we're going to make sure to rinse out our brush from earlier We want to make sure that all that grass flocking is out of the bristles. We'll be taking a little dab of that mud and putting it on the tip and just stippling it out on a napkin like so. What we want to do is just get rid of the excess. We want to apply this very lightly to the model. We don't want a lot of buildup. We're just going to put it to the sides and corners. This would be where any mud might splash up onto the armor itself. Think about it maybe drying in the sun. I'm going to be using a Vallejo pigment on the base for my next step. This is completely optional. If we really want to, we can go ahead and move on to flocking, but I wanted to take a second just to kind of highlight the use of pigments. We want to use a completely dry brush when doing this. And what I'm going to do is just start applying some of this to the corkboard. It's going to give a nice dusting effect. On the other side of the model here in a second, when I shift camera angles, you're going to see a natural sienna. It's going to have a great contrast. I highly recommend that you experiment with pigments. It's going to really bring your modeling to a next level. For my final touches, I'm going to take some craft rocks and some grass tufts and just super glue those to the base. I'm also going to take some black paint and just go around the border of the base itself. This is just going to clean up any overspray of paint or anything else we had. Now let's go take a look at the table. Hey gang, thanks for tuning in. As always, I do appreciate your viewership. I'm going to continue to try to crank out more content like this, especially more Mutant Crawl Classic crafting videos. We will explore some other games and some other projects as we go on. But more importantly, have a great day. Like, subscribe, and follow, and be safe wherever you are. Goodbye.